Welcome back for another episode of Is It Worth Playing? And this time around, we're looking at Die Hard Arcade on the Sega Saturn. That's right, a Saturn game. We're going back a little bit now. Die Hard Arcade, I first played actually on the arcade. It's a great walk around 3D perspective beat 'em up. Lots of fun, lots of pickups. There's health pickups, there's weapon pickups, there's guns you can pick up, there's rocket launchers you can pick up, there's weapons that you can spin around like brooms and all sorts of things. You're John McClane, joined by some random female police officer in two-player mode, and off you go and beat the crap out of everyone in another building. If you like beat 'em ups, especially from that era of the 90s, where they were experimenting with 3D graphics and so forth, you're really going to enjoy this. Having the free roam of a Final Fantasy game, but actually with 3D depth, is really fun. Now, the graphics themselves, look, they don't hold up brilliantly. A lot of stuff from that era, from the early PlayStation 1, Saturn, even that arcade era that wasn't 2D sprites, is really a mess to look at these days. But Die Hard Arcade, you can still play without it annoying you too much. It just looks a little bit choppy and a little bit messy, especially on the Saturn, being the fact that it is a port from an arcade game. But the Saturn does manage it really well. There's no frame rate issues, the entire game's there, and it's a great way to play a classic arcade beat 'em up that you really can't find in arcades since they don't exist anymore. And other than emulating it on something like MAME, this is the only experience you can have with it on an actual console, on hardware, in your house, unless you own the main board, unless you own the arcade board, sorry, which is pretty damn cool. And if you do, invite me over someday so I can play it. There's a little mini game that comes on the disc as well. Now, normally you'd be like, why would I even bother with that? It's cute though, because you have to play this little sub mini game to build up credits in the actual main game. So playing it and getting good at the mini game is almost essential to being able to finish the game, because the standard, I believe, 5 credits just isn't enough. Especially when you're sharing 5 credits over 2 players, they're going to disappear really quickly. This game was made to munch dollars in the arcade. You will get your ass kicked a lot. There are some QuickTime events as well, which is one of the first examples I can remember of QuickTime events being implemented into a game well. There's sequences where you're running down hallways, you have to hit either punch, kick, or jump to avoid either a shot or an enemy, or punch or kick them on your way through. Again, executed really well. Normally, QuickTime events slow down the pace of a game, kind of ruin it a little bit. These actually add to the tension. This is a developer should really go back and look at this game and go, okay, this is how you implement a QuickTime event without disturbing the game. This is pretty cool. If you're a fan of the Die Hard movies, growing up in the 80s like myself, of course, you have to be a fan of John McClane. This is just a great experience as well, because you actually get to play John McClane. Other than the NES Die Hard game, there wasn't others that I can remember off the top of my head. And the NES game, look, it wasn't great, but this actually feels a bit more like Die Hard. With the 3D modeling, the characters actually start losing clothing and getting more damaged as you go along. So as you're getting beaten up, especially when you're playing as John McClane, he ends up in just a wife beater and his shoes are off. And, you know, it's these little touches that are very cool that make the game authentic. If you haven't had a chance to play Die Hard Arcade, I really recommend it. It's not a cheap Saturn game, obviously, but it is a good one. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, and share.